friends, I'm Chelsea and I am here with the mid-year Freakout Book Tag. I've been seeing this going around a lot. I've watched videos of this tag for the last couple years on BookTube, and I always like a good mid-year evaluation and thought it would be fun to talk about the books I've been reading, where I'm at with my reading goal. So at this point, at the end of June, I have read 48 books. My goal on Goodreads and just in general is 75 books. So I'm definitely ahead of schedule, and this is the most I've read in a year or even halfway through the year for a couple years. So I'm back in the swing of things, reading a lot, and I have listened to 27 audiobooks, read 18 books physically, and then 3 of those have been a combo, so reading and listening. Lots more audiobooks than physical, and 48 books total. I have read a lot of really good books this year so far. I think I've had at least 10 5-star reads, lots of 4.75s, 4.5s, 4 stars. Only a handful that have been below 3 stars or in the 3-star range. I'm really finding my reading taste, lots of fantasy, just discovering what I like in a book, and it's been really good so far. So I'm going to preface this by saying I tried to narrow these answers down as much as I could, but as a person, I am morally opposed to only picking one thing for anything. Like my favorite movie, my favorite meal, my favorite color even. I can't just pick one. I'm that kind of person. So I narrowed it down as much as I could, but I have several answers for most of these. So without further ado, let's get into the questions. So the best book that I have read so far this year, I had to narrow it down to 3, which was hard. So the first one I have is actually one of the first books I read this year, and sadly I don't own it. Hopefully I will one day. But that is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. Yeah, I just loved that book so much. I really related to Tress, the main character, loved her quirkiness, her kindness, and just how she grew throughout the book, how she brought this crew of people together. Loved the adventurousness of it and the pirate stuff going on, and the magic system just being super unique and intricate, being Brandon Sanderson. Lots of fun little twists and turns along the way. Just had a great time, and I still think about it a lot even though I read it back in January. And then continuing on the Brandon Sanderson train, I have The Way of Kings. This is the first book in the Stormlight Archive. What can I say that hasn't already been said, that I haven't already said in several videos? This is just truly a masterpiece in epic fantasy. It's the only epic fantasy I've really read so far, and it might be the only I ever read this series, because I don't know if you can top it. Let me know if you found one that tops this series. I just had a great time jumping into this world, getting to know these characters. Even though it was a lot at first, it totally paid off in the end and really hooked me to continue on with the series. And I'll be talking about book 2 in another category. And then my third choice for best book of the year, it's a top 3, y'all. This shouldn't be surprising to you either. That is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Finally read it this year, and it did not disappoint. Love a good heist story, but really what stuck with me is all these characters. They just are all so layered, complex, just really real. I connected with all of them, was rooting for all of them, and just loving their banter, dialogue, and again, another cool, unique magic system world. I love her writing style. That's my top 3 right there. Question number 2 is the best sequel I have read so far this year, and you'll probably discover a theme here. So I'm just gonna keep this quick because it's pretty much the same things I just said. So that would be Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. That is the second book in Stormlight Archive. I finished it at the beginning of this month, and I'll talk more about it in my June wrap-up. At first, I wasn't sure which one I liked more, Way of Kings or Words of Radiance, and they're both 5 stars. Both amazing. I might like this one just slightly better than the first one, which is a pretty common opinion. A lot of things converge that were being built up in the first book. A lot of the characters finally meet and get together, and it's just so satisfying. Lots of really great moments of action and intrigue, and just more layers in the story. I love this a lot. And then the next one continues on what I already said. That would be Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo, and this is part 2 of the Six of Crows duology. I do think I liked Six of Crows more, but again, both of these were 5 stars for me. This one just really brought these characters to life even more It solidified them as a group after what they had gone through in the first book. I loved where the story went, and I also just loved getting to be with these characters more. There were some really heavy hitting moments. I just loved it. And then the third best sequel that I've read this year would be Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett. And this is part of the Emily Wilde series. I just adore this series. It's one of my recent favorites. I love it. Cozy, historical, fantasy romance. Very funny, quirky. Love the two main characters, Emily and Wendell. Just love both of them as people and also together. Their relationship is just really cute, really sweet, really funny. This one just continued on in their adventures, and it was a really fun setting. I'm really excited for the next book in the series. So yeah, just absolutely loved that book. Okay, question number 3 is a new release that I want to read but haven't read yet. And there's a lot because I usually don't read new releases right away unless I can get them from the library. And there's always new books coming out. I just narrowed it down to 3. So one of them that's been on my radar since it came out, which I think was January or February, that is A Tempest of Tea. I've been hearing kind of mixed things about it, so I'm a little hesitant, but I do want to read that soon, hopefully. And then another one is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I'm having a lot of FOMO because everyone's talking about it and loving it. I really liked Part of Your World by her. I have not read Yours Truly, so I think I need to do that first because they're all somewhat connected in this series. So I guess I need to get to Yours Truly first, and then Just for the Summer, I do want to read that one because everyone's talking about it and I want to be in on that, you know? And then the third one is The Housemaid is Watching by Frida McFadden, and that one just came out pretty recently, I think. This is the third book in the Housemaid series. I read the first 2 books. Both of them I read in under a week, I think. Like, totally bingeable, fast-paced. Not like the pinnacle of literature or great writing, but it really hooks you. Great thriller. So I'm very excited to read the third book. Okay, next category is my most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and I have 4 here. Obviously, I have to say the 5th book in the Stormlight Archive, Wind and Truth. I'm trying to make it work so I can get through the series in time to read that when it comes out. So I have 2 more books in the series and 6 months, so that should be pretty doable. Next I have Where the Library Hides by Isabel Ibanez. So this is the second part of What the River Knows, and I just read that a couple months ago, really liked it. It's like a historical fantasy set in Egypt. Death on the Nile meets the Mummy. It ended on a pretty intense cliffhanger, so I'm very ready to read the next book. Okay, this next one is probably the one I'm most excited about, potentially, and this is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. This is the author who wrote The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, another mouthful title. That was like a 5-star read for me. I just love like the cozy fantasy romance vibes, very much found family, very heartwarming, and I don't think this second book is related to that at all, but I loved her just writing style and characters too, so I'm sure it'll have some similar feels, and I'm very excited. And then also, kind of related somewhat, Somewhere Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune. So this is the sequel to The House in the Cerulean Sea. That one and The Irregular Witches felt very similar, and I loved them both. So again, can't wait to see where this series goes. Yeah, I guess this one is very fantasy series heavy, so that's exciting. Now we are on the biggest disappointments / DNFs. I added that, and I only have like a couple here because I don't want to talk negatively. There's enough like negative comments about books out there. I just want to mainly be positive, but I couldn't leave these 2. So you're probably gonna know already. My biggest disappointment for sure has been Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I just felt like it was not very original at all and just kind of got more and more cringy to me the further I went on in the book. I did like the romance, but otherwise I was just not really connected to any of the characters. It just was not for me. It's okay. I'm not going to continue the series. One less series to be in the middle of, I guess. And then I did DNF The Wishing Game by Meg Schaffer, and I had high hopes for this one. The premise sounded really interesting, like a Willy Wonka or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory magical realism type book. I just didn't really love the writing style and didn't, again, connect to the main character. It just wasn't for me. I DNF'd it, and that's that. Okay. My biggest surprise, I have two here, and actually they're both books that I've read this month, so I haven't talked about them yet. So first up, my biggest surprise would have to be Piranesi by Susanna Clark. Let's just take a moment to appreciate this beautiful cover. I just read this a couple days ago, actually. It is still sticking with me. It was a 5-star read. I did expect to like it a lot because I've heard pretty much nothing but good things about it, but I don't think I was expecting to be as captivated by it as I was. I was thinking it was going to be more kind of like an intellectual, slower read, and like it was just going to take a lot of mental energy. But like once I got past the 20-30 page mark, I just flew through it, and it was not hard to like understand or process. I just was really hooked and immersed and engrossed in it. Such great imagery, beautiful writing. Loved Piranesi, the main character. This might be like a top new favorite book of all time. That was a pleasant surprise. And then the other one I have is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams, and this is potentially my new favorite romance, contemporary romance that I've ever read. And again, this is one that I've heard almost completely positive things about, so not surprised that I loved it, but I was just so connected to these characters. I felt so much for them, like got emotional multiple times. I just wasn't expecting this to impact me as much as it did, especially being a romance. Like I don't read a lot of romance, and usually it's just like kind of fun, kind of cute, kind of steamy, but this just like hit me in the heart. A pleasant surprise. Very glad that I loved this and read this finally. Okay, the next one I'm gonna change a little bit. I believe the original question in the tag is your favorite new to you or debut author, and I couldn't really think of one that I've read this year that is like a new favorite author that I hadn't read before, so I'm changing it to my current favorite author, and that's just what it is. And it's probably not going to be surprising, so it's a tie between Brandon Sanderson and Leigh Bardugo. I have like 2 to 3 of their books in this that I've already mentioned. I just love Brandon Sanderson's like straightforward writing style. He just creates wonderful fantasy worlds, intricate world building, really interesting, intriguing. But I think so far what I love the most is his characters. They're just so complex and layered, and you get so much backstory in Stormlight Archive specifically. I'm just really enjoying his writing. And then very similarly, Leigh Bardugo, I feel like she has such a unique voice, just really writes characters really well. I keep saying the same thing. Very complex, layered, not one-dimensional, and feel like very real people with real struggles, real histories, backstories. I also just love the atmosphere that she can create. It's really evocative, moody, gritty, dark. Yeah, just great vibes, great magic systems, great dialogue, and all that. So I'm loving those two right now. Okay, next question is my newest fictional crush, and I could have picked a lot, but I'm just gonna do 2 here. My top one that came to mind is Miles from Funny Story by Emily Henry. He very much gives me Nick Miller vibes from the show New Girl, although I'd say he's a lot more friendly and less cynical, which I actually liked even more. Like he's just a really sweet, thoughtful guy. I really appreciated that he wasn't your typical bad guy, like tortured, kind of broody. Like I love that, but it was just really refreshing to have kind of a different male main character. I really liked him. And then secondly, Wendell from Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. I talked a lot about him, so I'm not going to go in depth, but he is a character. He's just kind of a weirdo, and I love it. He's a little diva. He is a little extra. Also kind of a unique male main character, love interest. He's really sweet to Emily. Also just lovingly teases her. I laugh out loud like pretty much everything he does. So those are my main 2. Next is newest favorite character. I have a couple here, so I'm gonna just talk really quick about 7 Days in June, Eva and Shane, who are both the main characters. Like I said when I was talking about this before, I just felt for them and felt very connected to them on their own, but also together. I just feel like they had both been through so much, and they're just really working through their trauma. Just really mature relationship, really mature people who are still struggling with stuff, but facing it head on. And then my other one is Kaladin from the Stormlight Archive. He's one of the main characters, and he has also been through a lot. He basically starts out as a soldier, and then he becomes a slave, and then he has this whole journey, and he has a lot of low points, especially in the first book, mental health struggles, and eventually he pulls this group together and just really brings this family together. He's just a great leader in this group. He's also just very real. It's just really interesting to learn about him and learn about his backstory. Really love him. Okay, books that made me cry. I've mentioned before that I don't cry a lot in books, but I did actually think of 3 specifically. So I mentioned this before. The Women by Kristen Hanna. Teared up a little bit, and I'm gonna count that, and so far that's 3 for 3 with Kristen Hanna books. And then again, 7 Days in June, a couple moments where I just lost it completely. And then also Finding Me by Viola Davis. This was more just tearing up and getting emotional, especially with her relationship with her father, the healing and reconciliation they had to go through. It's very powerful stuff, and it hit me right in the heart. That one definitely got me emotional and tearing up. Okay, in contrast, the next one is books that made me happy. Definitely Funny Story by Emily Henry. I was mostly smiling and giggling the whole time. There were definitely some heavier moments with the characters, Miles and Daphne, dealing with their personal things in their past. But in general, this was just a really fun, lighthearted, cute romance that really made me happy and smile a lot. Another one was Tress of the Emerald Sea. Again, enjoyed every minute of it. Very happy and had a really feel-good feeling after finishing it. And then the last one I thought of was Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. Very cozy, middle grade classic. If you read this book, you know Anne is just great. She's hilarious. She says some pretty crazy things. It was a very heartwarming, happy, cozy book. Okay, most beautiful book that I have received or bought, and the one that came to mind, I've shown it off a couple times. That would be my Jane Austen 7 novels book. So hopefully you can see this well. We got the beautiful spine right here. We got the gold over here. This thing's so heavy, wow. I just love the shininess of it, and blue is my favorite color. So that definitely wins out for my most beautiful book that I've gotten this year. Okay, the last one is what do I need to read by the end of the year? I could just show you my TBR cart and say everything, and that would be true. But there were a couple that came to mind that I keep either putting on my TBR and not reading, or just books that I really want to get to and plan to read hopefully by the end of the year. So here's my little stack. First we have One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. I have been seeing a lot of stuff about this on BookTube. Really interested in reading it and hope to read this in the fall. Next is Us Against You by Frederick Bachman. I read Beartown a couple years ago now, and talking about books that made me cry, that one broke me just a little. Loved it, and I think I'm kind of scared to start this because I hope it will live up to Beartown, but I do really want to get to this, so hopefully by the end of the year. And then My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. I put this on my TBR a couple months back. Still really want to read it. Maybe this summer. I've heard great things about this, so I do want to read this. Okay, don't hate me, y'all. I still haven't read this. It's been on my TBR twice now. That is Shady Hollow by Juno Black. I do want to read this. I just need to be in the right mood for a cozy mystery about foxes and woodland creatures, so someone convince me that I really need to read this, okay? It's so small. I feel like I can do it. I don't know. And then this one is Hello Beautiful by Anne Napolitano. I definitely want to get to this. It's an homage to Little Women, literary fiction. I have put it on my TBR once or twice, I don't know. Hopefully we'll read this soon. The last one, which I don't own, are just more Brandon Sanderson books in general, because I think it would make sense to read some of his other books in the Cosmere before reading certain other books in Stormlight Archive, for example, like Warbreaker, Dawn Shard, some other novellas maybe. I've heard that they can kind of bring some insight into the future books, and so in order to get the most out of the next couple Stormlight books, I do want to try to read some of his other Cosmere books, so I'm gonna try to do that, maybe. Just keep the Brandon Sanderson journey going. So that is it. There's so many other books that I loved this year that I didn't mention, and I feel like I'm betraying them, but I can't talk about every book I've read this year. Those are the standouts for me, and I would love to hear where you're at in your reading journey this year, what some of your top books have been, or what some of your least favorite books have been, and any of the answers to these questions I would love to hear in the comments. Thanks for watching as always, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!